The Jalopy Class at Pelican Park pays homage to the chunky, full-fendered American sedans of the late 1930s and 1940s. Cars with running boards, big fenders, and lots of attitude. Eligible bodies must be 2- or 4-door U.S. sedans from 1936 to 1948. Underneath, these cars ride on custom-built inline brass and wire chassis, each one a handcrafted engineering marvel. But don't let the nostalgia fool you. These tall sedans are a real handful thanks to their high center of gravity. Thankfully, the rules limit power to Death Star or Pro Slot 16D motors, rather than the higher-strung super motors used in NASCAR class. That helps keep things a bit more manageable, though just barely.
My entry in this week's competition is a '48 Chevy, built on a competitive custom brass and wire chassis. The car performed well in its last outing, and with a bit more experience on Pelican Park's tight and twisty circuit, I was hoping to improve on my last performance. Now I'll turn it over to the race announcer.
Welcome to Pelican Park Speedway, home of 1/24th scale slot car racing since 1989. Tonight's feature is the Jalopy Class, with sharp-looking replicas of the real machines from 1936 to 1948. With 10 racers, Pelican Park uses the Basil's Way format. Each driver competes in 4 heats, earning points based on their finishes. After the heats, the top 8 advance, while the remaining 2 move to the Hooligan race. From there, the next stage is the semi-mains, where the 8 drivers are randomly divided into 2 groups. The top 2 finishers in each semi-main advance to the main event, while the bottom 2 are relegated to the Consolation race.
James set the pace in Basil's Way qualifying, scoring an impressive 11 out of a possible 12 points to lead the field. Close behind were Gary T., Gary K., and Basil, all locked in with 9 points apiece. Cully wasn't far back with 8 points. These 5 front-runners were joined by Paul, Rich, and Greg to round out the top 8, setting the stage for some hotly contested semi-mains. Meanwhile, Tom and Chris were relegated to the Hooligan round, where they'd battle for redemption.
The 8 top drivers were randomly placed into 2 semi-mains, with James, Greg, Basil, and Gary K. in the first semi-main, and Cully, Gary T., Paul, and Rich in the second semi-main.
James dominated semi-main number 1, taking a convincing win. Basil crossed the line second about 2 laps back. Both drivers punched their tickets to the main, while Gary K. and Greg were relegated to the consolation round.
In semi-main number 2, Cully and Gary T. staged a thrilling duel for the top spot. Gary's car had the edge on speed, but a few unforced errors dropped him to second, still finishing on the same lap as Cully. Meanwhile, Rich and Paul battled for the final podium position, both ending a lap behind the leaders, with Rich edging out Paul for third. Both Rich and Paul were relegated to the consolation race.
After a false start and a lengthy track repair, the consolation race finally got underway. Gary K. entered as the favorite following a strong performance in Basil's Way qualifying. Rich's car looked competitive, though he drew the dreaded red lane. When the flag dropped, Gary K. and Paul jumped out front in a battle for top honors, with Rich close behind and Greg nipping at his heels. Late in the race, Gary K., then the leader, went off under the bridge, and the extended marshalling allowed both Paul and Rich to slip by. That's how it ended. Paul taking the win, Rich second, Greg third, and Gary K. fourth. As the bottom 2 finishers in the consolation race, Gary K. and Greg joined Tom and Chris in the Hooligan contest. Gary K. dominated the race, while Greg, Tom, and Chris finished 2nd through 4th respectively.
Now for the main event. Cully jumped out to an early lead and began opening a gap on second-place James. Near the halfway point, Basil's 48 Ford suffered a broken lead wire, taking him out of the race. A few laps later, Gary T and Cully tangled in the 76 corner, allowing James to slip into the lead. From there, he never looked back, taking the win by about 2 laps over Cully. Gary T finished third, roughly a lap behind.
Because of repeated track repairs and a long break to discuss the new computer and turkey night format, I didn't leave Eugenia to midnight instead of 11. Even though James handled navigation, I foolishly grabbed a cup of coffee to stay awake. Big mistake. I couldn't sleep when I got home at 1:30, so I got up and wrote this report instead. That's why it was posted so quickly. Another great night of racing at Pelican Park. Tight battles, strategic driving, and plenty of laughs. The Jalopy Class remains one of the most rewarding and challenging divisions for those willing to put in the effort. I'll definitely be back for the vintage NASCAR race in a couple of weeks.